Hi, my name is Crystal from Crystallized Designs, and today I'm going to show you how to ombre dye a crochet project. And I have a project here. This is the original design, and this is just dip dyed. In a different tutorial, I will link that in this post as well. But today we are going to do the ombre version. So what you're going to do is you're going to need at least a crochet project to dip dye with. You're going to need all-purpose dye. I use this brand, and for this project I use the emerald. So we're not going to use the emerald today. And so royal blue or teal. I think we're going to do royal blue today. The bigger project in the blog post used country blue, I believe, but I did use the whole bottle, so I no longer have that. So you will want all-purpose dye. You could also use food coloring as well. You could use a dye fixative. That's worked in later in the process. I'm not using any additives today. I'm just doing a very standard ombre dyeing just to show you what the outcome is and how to do it. For salt, you could add salt to the dye mixture, the dye bath, and that helps with, I'm trying to think. I just lost my that helps with even dyeing. And then you could add liquid dish soap, and that enhances the color. Or that's backwards. One of them enhances color, one of them, yeah. I'll link which one does which, but salt and dish soap put in the dye bath will also help with that. I'm not adding that today, but that would be right in the dye bath when we create that. You also need gloves and safety glasses. I have gloves here. I actually have my safety glasses on. I have an extra set here. You will need a surface protector. I love to keep all my old plastic tablecloths from parties. I like to cut them in half to use them on my card tables. And I always have a ton of these. This one's a birthday party one. But you'll need something saran wrap or a larger, like a sheet pan even you could use. Something to protect whatever surface you're working on. And I already have that laid out. You will need tongs, or you could always do like a wooden ring to hold your project and then a dowel to string it across to kind of keep it elevated. I'm going to use my tongs because I really like those best. And then an old towel, you'll need that to dry, and you will also need some sort of drying rack. I just have a cookie sheet I use for dyeing here. That will help it dry evenly. You can have airflow underneath the project, so it's definitely helpful to dry it on something that's elevated and has airflow through the bottom. Okay, so I've already protected my surface. You will need vinegar and water. So the actual project prior to dyeing, you want to soak in 4 cups water to a half a cup, or I'm sorry, quarter cup of vinegar, or no, half cup of vinegar. And this has been soaking for 30 minutes now, actually just slightly over. So you want to get the fibers all wet to take the dye easily. And you want to prep the water. So once this is dyeing, or while this is dyeing, you want to heat up water. I have it in this container. I'm hoping with the clear you'll be able to see it better. At least 140 degrees. You're going to want to follow the instructions based on whatever dye you're using. This one does say 140 degrees or greater. So you definitely want to check your instructions on whatever dye you're using. Acid dyes are different than these. That requires mixing and that kind of stuff. I have not used those. I really like this. This seems more simple to use, and I love the colors, and they're budget friendly, and You can pick them up at all the craft stores that I've been to. So I use this brand. To enhance the color, you could, yeah, okay, to enhance the color, you could add salt to this recipe with the dye, and that enhances the color. The liquid dish detergent does it keeps the dye, to dye the project evenly. That's what that is. Okay. So first of all, what I recommend doing is making up a swatch or having a little piece of yarn, or you could even do paper towel to test your dye color. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the royal blue. You always want to shake it. Sometimes if this sits for a while, you get clumps on the bottom, and I did just make the mistake of not shaking it well enough with the cardigan I did in the blog post, and I have a really dark blue spot from where that had like a chunk of really blue dye. Okay, so I'm just going to add the dye, and you want to add less first and then add more as you feel you need it. Okay, so let's try this. Alright, so that's what the paper towel looks like. And you can already see the ombre effect for this. You see it darker blue, and then it slowly creeps up and made a lighter blue. So that's kind of the effect we're going to do. I'm just going to put that over here and try not to get anything dyed. So I really like that color. We can test this. Now you want to test your test strip for the exact amount of time that you're going to do your project. And when it's wet, it's always going to look darker than it actually is. So this is a really, really quick, oh, I should have my gloves on. This is a really quick example of the ombre colors. So that is what we are hoping to achieve right there. Alright, let me get rid of that. Let me get my gloves on so I don't dye my hands. That wouldn't be great. Again, please use safety glasses. You don't want dye in your eyes. And this does sometimes splash if you're not careful. I'm going to try to be really, really careful with this. Okay, so we have our dye mixture and we have our project. So what I'm going to do for the ombre effect, I'm going to move this out of the way. And there's, well, I'm going to squeeze the excess water out. You don't want to wring this. You don't want to agitate the fibers too much, because then you'll get a really fuzzy piece of crocheted project. You'll fuzzy that up. Okay, so we're going to move that over. I'm going to move this to the middle. So now there's a couple ways to do this. Pardon my end. I did not, oh, yep, see, it just splashed in my face, but not in my eyes because I had safety glasses on. Okay, so there's two ways to do this. You can either start at the bottom or start at the top. So let's just say if I wanted to leave a little bit white, I'm not going to dip it in fully. And I'm just going to dip and dip, and I'm just going to keep dipping. Now this dye is actually really, really dark already. So I'm just dipping this in, and I'm dipping the lower section in more. I'm going to dip it in again. I see some white here. You can definitely squeeze out the excess water, but be careful because now I have dye in my gloves, and if I absolutely did not want this dyed, you don't want to get that dye on it. So if we squeeze a little, not only does that help penetrate the stitches really well, like that, but you can also see the colors taking shape. Now you can, oh, I just made a big mess. You can dip dye a project like this. dipping it in and out for as long as you want. Or you could put this on a dowel and string this up, and the bottom part will sit in the dye for a prolonged period of time and will make that darker. So I'm just going to hold this here for a couple seconds. I like the white, even though I got a little bit blue on it. You know, maybe we'll do that. Make it seem less like a oops, like my finger was dyed. Now we're just going to dunk it in real quick and then squeeze out the excess water. So now we have a full blue piece. If you didn't want to sit here for however long dunking it in and out, what you could do is you could string this up on a dowel anywhere and just hold it in the water. You could use a wooden ring and then string the dowel through the ring. Something, oop, I'm splashing dye all over. Something that can sit straight across whatever container you're using. I don't think I talked about containers, so real quick, you do not want to use aluminum, plastic, glass, something that you're okay with, you know, with plastic. If you accidentally dye it, you definitely want something that you're not going to miss terribly. And as long as it's not aluminum. So this water is really hot, so make sure you be careful with that. And what I think I'm going to do, instead of dipping this for 30 minutes, I'm just going to hang it over the edge of the bowl and keep that little corner in. And then we'll come back and let's say I only want to dye it for 15 minutes. We'll come back in 15 minutes and see exactly what that looks like. So I won't keep you waiting. I will come back and do this when it's done. And I don't want to touch that glove and get dye all over my hands. And we'll see how dark that is compared to the others. And, all right, 30 or 20-minute timer starting now. All right, we're back. This has been a little bit more than the 20 minutes. I got sidetracked with getting the kids to bed, so it's been more like 30. And I came back and I had a big mess on my table. So that is really, really, really important to protect your table. You can see my spots there from after I put the cloth down. What had happened was you want to kind of hold it up somehow, even if you have to roll this top part and somehow brace it like that, because then the dye won't work its way up and over like it did. So the top piece right now has more blue in it than I originally had, but overall I am happy with how this turned out. You can definitely see the ombre effect. While I was waiting, I did empty my vinegar water solution. I'm not near a sink right now. Again, because I made quite the mess, this would be a lot easier to clean up if I'm right by a sink. But with this setup, I am not. So I'm just going to gently, without agitating the fibers too much, just squeeze out as much dye bath as I can without really agitating the fibers. You'll notice that I'm keeping the lighter color up top because I really don't want that color to bleed down. And then I'm going to put it in this bowl. Whoops, I just redunked the bottom. So I got as much water out of it as possible. I'm going to put it in this bowl. You can see the ombre effect happening pretty good right now. And I'm going to go to a different room to rinse this off, and I will be right back. All right, I have completely rinsed out my crochet project, and my hands are slightly wet, so I'm struggling to get on my new gloves. Make sure to check your dye directions because that will say how to rinse out your project. For example, mine says to rinse with cold water until it runs clear. I've seen some dyes where you have to rinse with hot water first and then cold. So just make sure to follow the directions on whichever dye you're using. I did rinse this out. There we go. I did rinse this until it was clear, and then again, I didn't wring my project because that's really gonna mess with the shape and the fibers. So what I just did is I just gently squeezed as much as possible. So that being done, move that over there. This is the part where you need an old towel. So I got dye on this section right here. So I'm not going to use that. I'm going to mainly just use the part that doesn't have dye on it. So, oh, I love that ombre effect. This turned out really nice. And I'm a blue person, so that's perfect. I have it laying out exactly how I want it. I'll weave in my ends later. And I'm just going to start by folding this over and pushing and then rolling as I push. So basically, without wringing it, I'm trying to soak up as much water as possible. Now, you don't have to do this step, but this will help your project dry a lot quicker than without doing this. All right, you don't have to do it very much. You could always do it again, but I didn't have much water to begin with in there. So now I'm going to fold this away. And that is the ombre effect using the royal blue dye. And again, when I stated you could start from the top or the bottom, so what I meant by that is we started at the top and we dipped it in all the way to the top and then pulled it out. And then slowly dipped and left this in. Now, you could also always start with this. So you could sit and dip your project into the dye over and over and over again. So this part gets dark, and then you can work your way down and dip and dip and dip. This will continue to get darker, and then this will get color. And then as you slowly move up, you do it with less time. And this part, the bottom sections, will still continue to get dark, whereas the top won't as much. So you can work from the top or bottom of your piece. So I hope that makes sense. So now that we have it dyed, actually this is the right side. Now that we have it dyed and ready to dry, I'm going to bring out my cookie sheet that I use for drying projects. And I'm just going to lay that like so. This allows for air to flow under and allows for even drying. If I were to lay this right on the surface, the bottom of it would not dry completely. I would have to flip it over. It would take longer. So using some sort of drying rack. Okay, and a cookie sheet works perfectly fine for this, a larger project. So I just dip dyed my crystallized boho cardigan, and that's a cardigan, and it's shown in the picture tutorial and the blog post. What I did was I put two outside black holy what are they, like outdoor tables together, and I just draped it over that and kept it in the sun, and it was a nice, it's almost fall, so with the cool weather, the not humid weather, it dried really, really nice outside. So I'm going to let that now. We are completely done with this project. If you have any questions, be sure to ask, and I would be happy to answer them for you. I'm not one that dip dyes or ombre dyes all the time. It's just for projects that I want to spice up a little bit. I've done more macrame ombre dyeing than I have crochet project dyeing. But I love the macrame dip dyeing as well. So that is how you achieve that. If you like this tutorial and want to receive notifications for all patterns and all tutorials, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you later. Bye.